What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into another edition of the NFL Weekly, the Conference Championship edition. That's right. We are only 3 games away from the end of the football season. But to help me break it down, as always, we have Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
I am doing well. It is truly, truly hard to believe that not only are we done with the first month of the new year, but as we say, we've come to say every year, it seems like we're here, we're at the championship weekend, and it seems like only last weekend we were talking about those very first preseason games. My,
Mm-hmm.
how time flies.
It's the football season. Obviously, it's unlike any other because it's 1 game a week and it's generally on Sundays. But I just always marvel at the fact where you feel like it's week 2 and you blink and we're in the playoffs, and it's just crazy. Obviously, um, it's unfortunately we only have 3 games left, but hopefully they are 3 of the better ones that we see this season. For me, Conference Championship Sunday is always one of my favorite days of the football calendar, because you got arguably and hopefully the 4 best teams remaining going at it in 2 games, and it's kind of an all-day event. With all due respect to the Super Bowl, I call it like Space Mountain. You stand in line for 3 hours and you're on the ride for 30 seconds. That's kind of what the Super Bowl is. We get 2 weeks of over analyzing, and the game's 3 hours, and there's a chance the game isn't very good at all anyway. But Conference Championship Sunday, it is really the meat and potatoes of the playoffs, and ready to break it all down. Hopefully we'll have Coach back with us for our Super Bowl preview, but he got a little tied up, so you're stuck with the 2 of us, but I think you're in pretty good hands going forward. We'll start to look back first. We'll get to the conference championship previews here in a bit, but let's take a look back at divisional weekend in a review. And I think it's applicable. We start obviously chronologically, but we start in Kansas City. The Jacksonville Jaguars, the Kansas City Chiefs. I tell you what, the Jaguars did everything they could, just couldn't get the job done. I will tip my hat to Doug Peterson getting that field goal in to get that backdoor cover to really, help the Vegas bettors out. And obviously it worked out in the scheme of the game too, because you want to kick that field goal and try and get that onside kick with as much time as left. Didn't go as planned, but a really valiant effort from a team that I don't think either of us expected to be there. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Kansas City moving on to a 5th straight championship game, despite the Jaguars' best efforts.
Jacksonville, great bunch of competitors. They were there till from the opening bell to the last bell, and they gave it everything they had. Yeah, as you have just said, you got to tip your hat to every one of those guys. They really gave it their all. But what do you say about the Chiefs? You know, you see Patrick Mahomes go down early in the game, and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be not good. Uh, but they just kind of grab the guy off the bench and plug him in. And people forget, some people may have scoffed at that when they put him in or just wrote off the game at that point. Guy's been around for years. He's not there because he's got nerves or he's going to, have the butterflies in the stomach. He's there to play football. He's played football his entire career. So I think they had a perfect guy in there. Much, much different situations, of course. But it's kind of like Derek Carr goes down and they had a Marcus Mariota on the sideline. Yeah. Well, hey, there was nothing wrong with that. That was caliber backup. But Kansas City, what do you say about them? Here, they've done it again. And Holmes has got that fiery competitive spirit about him, doesn't want to be hurt and doesn't want to be told he can't play. And Kelsey, what do you say about the game that Travis Kelsey put up? He just throw him the ball. They could put one of the offensive linemen back there to throw to him, and he's just going to make it look fantastic. Kansas City defense didn't do too bad either. They really held their own. So, wow, just what a great game. That was a perfect game. But wait for the fireworks this weekend when the Bengals come rolling into Kansas City. That's going to be a game.
Yeah, I think I don't quite remember, but I believe we all expected the Jaguars to cover. I think it was 9.5, but I don't think any one of us expected them to win that game. And I think maybe as a fan base for the Chiefs, I think they had that kind of same mentality. Obviously, it was probably closer than they would have liked, but they get the win. And it was all looking towards this game, right? Either way, they're getting Buffalo or they're getting Cincinnati. We now know it's Cincinnati, and it kind of turned into that revenge game for that fan base. But in terms of the Jaguars, what a fantastic effort they did all season, and an incredible turnaround not only for the franchise but for Trevor Lawrence, who really does now look the part. Something we all kind of expected and we're hoping to see. I think we have that now. On the Kansas City side, you brought up Chad Henne. What an incredible effort! First of all, I didn't know he was still in the league, let alone the backup to Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I feel like this guy was on the 0-1, played with Tom Brady at Michigan. Like, didn't Chad Henne beat Tom Brady out? Blah, blah, blah. But it's incredible to see him obviously still doing that. But he took them on a 96-yard drive. And I'm not talking, in a lot of teams you'll see, especially when Mahomes went into the locker room, did whatever they needed to do, and came back for the rest of the game. But if the coach knows, hey, we can go back there and we might be able to get Patrick Mahomes back for you. A lot of quarterbacks, it would be, we're going to run the ball 3 times. And, if we get 2 first downs, fantastic. But we are stalling right now, essentially. That wasn't the case. And it wasn't a, bombs away type situation, but I think it shows, obviously, Chad Henne, a veteran, able to come in, did his homework, knows that at any single moment he could be called upon. He was ready to the challenge, or up to the challenge. Good for him. And, good for the Chiefs to continue on, because I think this is the rematch we all kind of wanted. I know the Buffalo Kansas City game last year was incredible. But I can't wait to see what we're going to see on Sunday from Kansas City and Cincinnati. But 5 straight championship games as well. Andy Reid, absolutely incredible. He is the only coach to do this, or to take 2 teams to 5 straight championship games. Right. Obviously, the Eagles were the first, and now the Chiefs. Good for Big Red. I can't wait to see what happens. And we might see that Philadelphia Andy Reid reunion on Super Bowl Sunday, but we'll get to that in a bit. And moving on to the next game, and I won't be able to take the smile off of my face because it was the New York Giants heading to Philadelphia. And this game was never in doubt. I was worried at the beginning and saw the Eagles and the Giants' first drives respectfully, and I knew the Eagles were going to win the game. I didn't think they'd put up another 38-7. Which is, I believe, 3 or 4 years to the day of the Eagles defeating the Vikings 38-7 to go to the Super Bowl to beat the Patriots in 2018. But they go out and they dominate. And this is the return to what we've seen. I was really, really worried about the 49ers, and for good reason, because the Eagles had looked like they'd regressed. That all came back pretty much 360. That was an incredible turn for the Eagles. They dominated the game. Jalen Hurts shows no ill signs of any shoulder or this or that. My goodness, the Eagles just look undefendable. They can beat you over the top. They can beat you with the dink and dunk, and they can run with 2 or 3 options. The Eagles had more rushing yards than the Giants had total yards. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but we're going to try and keep this short. Eagles dominate, and once again, it's the run game that really sets things up. You look at the stats, the time the Eagles can get over 100, 150 yards, they get the job done, and they win most of those games. They blew through that one here. So moving on. But Raider Jim, what were your thoughts? Giants fall to the Eagles.
I did not think, I never even crossed my mind that Philadelphia wouldn't prevail in this one. Did I think that the Giants were going to be able to cover? I truly did. I think it was 8.5 points at kickoff. And I thought, no, okay, they might lose by a touchdown. But they just must have left it all on the table when they took care of business against the Vikings. And that's not to sell short the performance of the Eagles. And I'll use the word now, and you'll hear me again use the word when we talk about the game coming up this Sunday, balance. They have got balance, and that balance, and they're focused and they can execute. Very dangerous for any defense that's on the field against them.
Yeah, it's the one-dimensional type of teams need to be very, very good at that one dimension. And even then, they're probably not getting to this point. There has to be something else. And for the Eagles, maybe the hardest question is how do we attack this defense in terms of what do we start, kind of try to beat this team with? And, I'm getting ahead of myself there, but a really fantastic effort from the Eagles. They move on. Once again, really never in doubt, 38-7. Good season for the Giants, did not end well, but I think the future is bright for the Giants. I think Brian Daboll has them on the right track. But still,
well, like Jacksonville, I think that they also performed at a much better level than their own fan base expected, and that most fans of the NFL expected. I didn't think that they would be there in the playoffs this year. And so, hats off to them. I think they're pointed in the right direction. Of course, now they have some signing issues and things like that. We'll see what happens. Off season, always some breaks programs.
But I think it's the culture. The guys that are going to be there can tell the guys that do come in, look, you might not agree with it right now, but this is what we did last year, and look at what we did. I think that credibility, I think, is really key for Brian Daboll. And yeah, there are definitely some question marks for the Giants going forward. But besides this game, they're going to have a bit of a bad taste in their mouth. But even making the playoffs and winning a road game against a good Vikings team. I kind of make fun of the Vikings, but at the same time, they were a good team, and the Giants did what they needed to do against the Vikings. Just once again, not at that level, similar to the Jaguars. Kind of, you're getting there, but you need just a little bit more time, a little bit more weapons going forward. So moving on to the Sunday games, we had Cincinnati dominate the home Buffalo Bills in a situation where Josh Allen seemed to be running for his life every 2 seconds, and Joe Burrow is so comfortable no matter what you throw at this man. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? You had Cincinnati taking down Buffalo 27-10.
I guess the underlying question for me, and I'll put it to you, did Buffalo lose their window? They were picked this season, last season, the season before, and they never did get over the hurdle. Did they miss their window now? Because what I really didn't appreciate was things are already bad, and instead of seeing the teamwork and where I'm going with this, you have the wide receiver standing in front of the quarterback, flapping his arms. The guy's trying to figure out a way to do something. He understands what he has done wrong. But who's this guy to stand? This is your teammate. This is when you show the highest level of support. So I think that type of thing in the locker room to end your season, it's not going to get better anytime soon. But Cincinnati, my goodness, Joe Mixon only had 50, 60 yards going into the second half, but every time they handed him the ball, he's going at it 110%. If he got 3 yards or if he got 8 yards, when he got up, he had a big smile on his face. He was ready to go. He's like, that was fun. Let's do it again. I'm watching these guys hit the frozen field, and I'm just like, shuddering every time one of them goes down. Overall, Cincinnati is just a total package. They're kind of like watching those Eagles. They've just got it on both sides of the ball. They can execute the offensive line for Cincinnati. I'm sorry. That is what a group of guys they got there. Hats off. There they are. That's why they are in the championship game, and that is what's going to make this game against Kansas City probably could be one for the history books.
Yeah. And you brought up the offensive line. That was a makeshift offensive line. I believe I heard there were 3 starters that were down.
At least 2 were out. Yes.
Correct. Yeah, at least. And with all due respect, it's not like Cincinnati's offensive line healthy is this team that you expect to come in. But, someone on Buffalo's side, and I'll get to all the drama in a minute, but I'm really starting to kind of look around and go, is Von Miller just the most valuable defensive player in the history of the world? Because we saw what happened with the Rams, right? Rams won their
Yep,
Super Bowl pretty much on defense.
correct.
Von Miller's gone. They don't make the playoffs. Buffalo loses Von Miller, and it all kind of, at least defensively, seemed to go downhill. Sean McDermott's a defensive minded guy. In the beginning, when they were grooming Josh Allen, it was the defense that got the job done. Not the case, but you're right. The Stephon Diggs, I understand, the kind of prima donna, the somewhat selfishness that you kind of have to be a wide receiver. But that right there, it needs to be reeled in. And another part of it too is there needs to be other team coming up and ushering him out of the way and mentoring him and saying, look, you've had a great season, but you need to go sit down. Like, we understand we're all frustrated, but you're the one kind of acting like a clown right now. And in terms of the window, I think the window is as far as Josh Allen can keep it open. And as good as Josh Allen has been lately or over the last 3 or 4 weeks, the interceptions came back to really hurt him. And I do wonder going forward if Josh Allen can't figure that out. And if he can't, then I do think that window is closed. But I do still think you have a puncher's chance with a quarterback at the caliber of Josh Allen if he protects the football. On Cincinnati's side, you said it best. This is a running team with balance. We talk about Joe Burrow. He's going to go out. He's going to drop back and get his. But to have Joe Mixon and that run game as well, I think that helps the offensive line, because now those pass rushers aren't just going full bore. They got to be ready to kind of stay in their gaps on a run play. Play action actually exists, keeps the linebackers sucked towards the line of scrimmage a little bit more. I think going forward, Cincinnati has to feel as good as they can, as good as they do right now. And Joe Burrow, I tell you what, that man does not lack confidence, but you know what? He backs it up. I love what they asked him. They said, oh, what do you say to all those people? The NFL sold 50,000 tickets to the neutral site Kansas City Buffalo game. What are your thoughts? He goes, well, better get those refunds. He's just very, he's ready for this moment. And I think he's about to take that next step. But what a performance from the Cincinnati Bengals going to Buffalo in a snowstorm as well, to get the job done and move on to the championship game for the second straight season. On the other side of things, we had the NFC divisional, the San Francisco 49ers taking down the Dallas Cowboys. And, I'm sure if you're listening, you could kind of hear the smile in my voice. It's not too, secret that I am not a Cowboys fan. Obviously, I do not like them besides the Dodgers. The Dallas Cowboys are my most hated franchise out there, but I'll give them credit. They hung with the 49ers. I think they went out and their game plan, they executed to the best of their ability for 3 quarters. And then Dak had some very timely interceptions. We talked about he protected the ball against Tampa Bay and they won. He did not protect the ball against San Francisco. And honestly, they still had a chance to win the game. Obviously that last play, I tell you what, if that's the last time we see Zeke in a Cowboy uniform and it's the last play is him getting absolutely demolished by a defensive lineman, wow, that would be a story. But not great for the Cowboys. Their season ends to the 49ers for a second straight year. But for the 49ers, I think it showed that they can kind of grind out these games, these close games. There were some flaws, I think, that were shown for Brock Purdy and maybe some other parts of that offense. But we talk about Travis Kelce on Kansas City and what he can do in that safety net that he is for that quarter, or for the quarterback, whether it's Mahomes or it was Henny last week for a bit. But Brock Purdy, what an incredible safety net to not only have, Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, but I'll tell you what, Jurgic, or I struggle with his name, but the fullback, that guy he reminds me of a Jacob Hester for the Chargers back in the day, kind of the last of the small fullbacks. This is a guy that is such an incredible athlete, and they use him more than most teams use their fullback, and he's a weapon. But Niners do what they need to do. They win by 7. They cover. I expected them to cover, and they did. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Niners take down the Cowboys for the second straight year.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what to do when they marched out the poor Cowboy kicker and his first attempt got blocked. And thankfully he came back and thankfully it was a block, but then the TV did him no favor by zooming in on his foot and saying if he'd have hit that, it wouldn't have mattered because look how far left that was going to go. He would have missed the upright by 10 yards to the left. I said, okay, well, no, we didn't need to point that out, but it is part of the storyline for this past one. Yeah, Dallas hung with it, but Dallas didn't. Unlike Jacksonville, who was in it until the final bell, it seemed like the ninth and 10th round, they kind of started running out of gas, and they were dropping their hands and getting punched. What can you say? What really, really impressed me was different defensive schemes that I saw the 49ers bringing when they, up at the line, off the line, moving, it was never attacking from the same place. It was just a thing of beauty to watch. And that's going to be something to watch. And I can't wait to see this game against the Eagles on Saturday or over the weekend, I should say, because my gosh, there is another team where Philadelphia will have the edge is if they're going to rely too much on this drop back passing game, that's going to play to the favor of the Eagles. But if the offensive minds of the 49ers put together a more balanced attack and go run, pass, pass, how are they going to work the cadence of their play calling? That's going to be important. But wow, what a great game they played. And those guys can tackle. And maybe that's just because I'm so used to watching the Raiders who can't tackle. But I'm watching the 49er, their linebackers, their defensive backs, they break through the line. They reach down their one hand on ankles, but they're pulling people up off the ground. They sweep feet up off the ground. They make people hit the ground. So they're really, really, it's a work of defensive art to watch that team play.
Yeah, I think I have to imagine either this year or next year we're gonna see D'Amico Ryans in the head coaching spot. If not, something needs to be brought up. I was thinking, Houston would be a great place. He played there, but at the same time, do you really want him to go there? Unfortunately, it seems to be you have to figure out a way to win a Super Bowl with Davis Mills, or else you're going to get fired in 1 year. So maybe I don't want to wish that, at least the Houston side of things, but I do expect to see D'Amico Ryans in the head coaching spot very soon, probably later than he deserves it, because he probably was more let's say qualified than some other candidates possibly who were given head coaching jobs. But now it is time to look ahead to Sunday and conference championship games. We are going to start in the NFC as they are the noon game. Of course, it's the San Francisco 49ers, the 2 seed at the 1 seed Philadelphia Eagles. This game will be going off noon Pacific, 3 on the East. Do the math in between. Obviously, I'm going to get this one started, and you brought up kind of the 9th and 10th rounds against the Cowboys and how it was very evident that the Cowboys were starting to tire. So kind of my focus and my word for this preview is balance, or is depth, excuse me. And that's what the Eagles are going to bring to the table, and what I truly believe is going to be the difference in this game. Look, the Eagles have the best offense statistically. The Niners have the best defense statistically. So let's just kind of not throw it out, but let's call it a wash. However, so it's going to come down to what can Brock Purdy do against a very good and very ferocious defense. Brock Purdy has had a very good season. He's been a fantastic story. I don't think he's Tom Brady 2.0. And one of my buddies asked me, what would you do? Would you trade Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance? And I said, you know what? I'd trade Brock Purdy. And I know that sounds crazy, but I promise you, this is the most value Brock Purdy will have. And I'm not saying that in terms of we'll never see him from him again or anything like that. But Brock Purdy is in a position right now to succeed, and he's doing it. Don't get me wrong, but I do believe we saw some some plays last week where I think maybe he thinks he's maybe a little bit more Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, where he's getting out of the pocket and slinging it and through into double coverage. Cowboys didn't make him pay, but there were mistakes made for Brock Purdy. And this is going to be a coming of age party for him because he's played 2 road games or started 2 road games. They were at Seattle and at Vegas. And with all due respect to the Raiders, not a huge home field advantage at the moment. Yeah, it's very similar with the Chargers. And you know, it's the vacation towns. It's very difficult. But it was 50-50 probably for that 49er Raider game. But Seattle, it gets loud, but it's not that ferocious kind of 12th man we saw back in the day. Well, you're stepping into the pits of hell, if you will. I saw a quote from the Phillies manager on the baseball side of things. He talked to one of the coaches that he faced in the playoffs. He said, yeah, it's pretty much 4 hours of hell when you're playing in Philadelphia. So I think that's going to be a big part of it. But the run game for the Niners, where they can wear you down, and by the 4th quarter, you got hands on your hips, things like that. I think the Eagles are going to be immune to that because they can go 7 to 8 deep. And this pass rush is going to force Kyle Shanahan to run the ball more than he wants. You talked about the drop back passing. Hassan Reddick has been an absolute monster. You also have, Brandon Graham and that cast that is going to hopefully get to Brock Purdy. In terms of the spread, I was so excited to talk about this game. I didn't even get out the spread or any numbers. So the Niners are plus 125 on the money line side of things. Philadelphia minus 150. The Eagles are minus 2.5. 46.5 is the over under. Now I never really bet on my team. But I do expect the Eagles to win this game. I'm not really messing with the spreads this weekend. I'm looking just straight winners. I like the Eagles to win this game. I think they get the job done. I think the ability to get after Brock Purdy, and I think the nerves early on for Brock Purdy, that kind of deer in headlights where he's warming up and there are men and children yelling and calling his mother some pretty vulgar names. I think it'll get to him for a little bit. He'll probably settle in. But ask Daniel Jones, you don't get a whole lot of opportunities against the Eagle defense. So we'll see how that goes. I like the Eagles to win this game. In terms of the over-under, this one is very tricky for me. I think we're going to stay under this number, and it's only because I think the Eagles' best chance is to stay under, which is kind of antithesis of how the Niners play. But I want the Eagles to control this game. I want the Eagles to have the ball for 35 to 40 minutes in this game, and wear this defense down. Get Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, Jalen Hurts, all significant carries going forward. And hopefully we can get that win. Obviously it's going to be a challenge. I'm confident now, but I think game time I'll probably be a little less confident and probably downright nervous. But I'm excited. I can't wait. I think this is going to be the best game of the weekend. Noon can't get here soon enough on Sunday. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Niners 2.5 point underdogs as they head to Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. We both realize that. I will tell you, for Brock Purdy, and you're absolutely right, there was a little bit of nerves. You could see that early on. He didn't completely fold or get too rattled, but you could see it in his game. He's not going to make the Patrick Mahomes plays, and you're right, a couple times it seemed like that's what he was trying to do. Don't try to finesse it. Don't try to play your game. You don't need to establish new expectations, especially in this arena. I think the best thing for the 49ers would be to win the toss, defer the kickoff on the opening game, let Philadelphia's offense come out first and see what their defense can do. Can they get them to a 3 and out? Anything to keep Purdy off the field, give him a little time to, everything settles, let the nerves settle a little bit, let him see that his defense is going to go out there and execute. And all he needs to do then is focus, execute little bits at a time, move the ball, keep his offense on the field. They're not going to score 40, 50 points. We all know that. That's not the Niners' game plan. But that's going to be in their best interest if they can do it. They are balanced. as the Eagles are balanced. But as you said, the depth comes on the Eagles side of the ball. And so how fatigued are the Niners going to get? Or will they get fatigued? The defense, when I thought they were going to get tired last week, I will say somewhere they came up with took a deep breath, and they just started going again. They had a lot of momentum going at the end of that game on the defensive side of the ball. So he's got the weapons on the offense. He's got Deebo Samuel. He's got Kittle. This is a very talented team, and the fullback, again, name escapes me, but they know how to notch away yards. Small, over the middle. How is that defense scheme going to play out? We'll see. But Eagles, this is a game going into it. It's really a shame that somebody is not going to be able to go to the Super Bowl. Both teams are very deserving to be where they're at this coming Sunday. My poll on this one is I think it's definitely the under on this one. And at this point, I'm not even looking at the spread.
Yeah. It's it's such a good game that you almost don't want to touch it. I'm not going to touch it. Maybe, like I said, maybe hit the under. A George Kittle anytime touchdown, or even a Travis Kelce anytime touchdown seems to be an easy bet to cash these days. But other than that, I think it's just sit back, enjoy 3 hours, and figure out who the best team in the NFC is, because I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind. The NFL could have said, hey, we're only going to let 2 teams in the NFC. And I don't think anyone would have minded. These are the 2 best teams. They've proven it. Now we get to determine who is better. Can't wait to see that. And I love your point about the coin toss, because I do think it changes things, right? If Jalen Hurts goes out there and they go 3 and out, all of a sudden the fans are going, ooh, maybe holding their breath, and maybe they're not all on that level, but I can envision it now. The Eagles kicking off, and you see the return man kind of give the tee to let his guys know it's going to be a touchback. And here comes Brock Purdy, and the place just erupts because the game is about to start. It's your most energy you're going to have. I don't know how much energy they'll have, after the week they've had, but it's going to be very interesting. And the coin toss, I'm really now hoping that Fox televises the coin toss, and that's a great point. Thanks so much for bringing that up, because it does really, really change things. Even if the Eagles are able to stop Brock Purdy, that could be a great time for the Eagles to come out and take advantage of that. But moving on to the AFC side of things, we get a rematch of last year's championship game. It is the Cincinnati Bengals head to Arrowhead to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. This is the 1 versus the 3 in this matchup. Raider Jim, we're looking at this number as minus 120 for Cincinnati. They are road favorites at Kansas City, who's plus 100. Even money on the money line, on the money line side of things. And the spread is -1, but once again, it's pretty much a pick 'em at this point, with the over under sitting at 47. This is an AFC West matchup. Raider Jim, the floor is yours.
Yeah, one thing surprising, but we talked about it before you hit record. Neither game is going to be affected by weather. It's going to be cold in Kansas City, but that's it. They don't show any sleet, rain, snow, nothing like that. It's just going to be very, very cold. Of course, what's the storyline of the week? Oh my gosh, Patrick Mahomes has a high ankle sprain. Well, guess what? I think a lot of guys have gone out there with that high ankle sprain. Now, it does affect him. It affected him more last week, probably, because when it's the immediate injury and you're asking your body to recover, or you have to find out how you can compensate to still make those plays that people are used to seeing you see. Sometimes that doesn't happen quite as readily when it's the moment of the injury. That's what he did. I think it was the first time he came back in, he tried to do a pivot and throw off his right foot. You could see him bring his leg up real quick. He didn't have it. And that pass was errant. It ended up. So how injured is he? He will not take the field if they don't think they can protect him, if they don't think he can execute. He may not be able to do some of the spiffy moves that he usually does, but he's got Travis Kelce out there, and he's got a good supporting cast. So he's going to be fine that way. On the other side of it, Kansas City defense has to, maybe this is another coin toss thing. defer, let the Bengals get it first. But boy, now you're daring people. And if you're going to dare the Bengals, here, you can have the ball first. Well, then your defense better be ready to go out and execute and get them off the field in 3 plays. That's going to be key. You got to stop these guys fast because they're an offensive machine. And I don't know, unfortunately, I'm not up to date on the status of their offensive line right now. The Bengals offensive line. And the defense for the Bengals is definitely going to be at Patrick Mahomes all day long. They know what to do. They're going to see, you'll probably see some things that you may not normally see out of them to get some outside pressures on them. Get the edges in there, put them out a little bit more, have them drop back, send your outside linebackers in type of a thing. Going to be interesting to see. For me, I think that this is one of those like the best of 7 series or the best 3 out of 5. I think you're going to see Kansas City take this one and that is not a slam against the Bengals by any means. I think that's just how it's going to work out this time.
Yeah, you talk about the coin toss here as well. Good point. I kind of look at this as a coin toss game. I flip a coin. I feel like you're kind of splitting hairs at this point when you talk about these two teams. I do think Patrick Mahomes will be affected by that, but what for better or worse, there's the cortisone shots that I'm sure he'll be dealing with, because if he came back last week, I really have to imagine he's ready to roll and they're going to get him into a position where he is going to be able to go out there. But again, at what level? He was able to do what he needed to do last week. I think this Cincinnati defense now has a whole week to game plan around what they expect and what we all expect to be a pocket passing Patrick Mahomes. And that changes the way you're going to rush a quarterback. Lamar Jackson is not rushed the way Tom Brady is rushed. Lamar Jackson, pretty much the ends are just playing contain. They don't necessarily want to get him right back on that drop back. They're ready for him to pick a lane, and that's where they pick him up. Tom Brady, it's full-fledged meet at the quarterback. And that's kind of the difference here. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, even on one leg or, with a bum ankle, maybe a little more athletic or at least faster than Tom Brady on that side. But the plant foot, there are a lot of things that go into this, and all eyes are going to be on him every single snap, every time he lifts his leg up, every time he grimaces. Tony Romo, Jim Nantz are going to remind you about it. We're going to see the replay 3 or 4 times. But on the other side, you have a guy in Joe Burrow who, as I said, is unflappable. This is a guy that seems you could drop him into some very uncomfortable situations, and he's going to come out not only the king of the castle, but he'll ask to do it again. And I really love that confidence. He has obviously someone he trusts in Jamar Chase, a former college teammate, Joe Mixon, who continues to kind of quietly become one of the best running backs in all of football, very consistent over the last 2 or 3 years. Oh, this is so tough. And the over-under side of things, I do like the over here. I think we're going to see some points being scored. I think we're going to see hopefully a bit of a shootout like we saw last year with Buffalo and Kansas City, and obviously Cincinnati and Kansas City. But give me the over 47. That's all I'm touching here, though, folks. I mean, if you hold a gun to my head, I'd say Cincinnati, only because Burrow knows what it takes to go into Arrowhead and win in a conference championship. There aren't too many quarterbacks in the league, let alone 3rd or 4th year quarterbacks that could say, yeah, I know what it's like to go into Arrowhead and win a conference championship. Burrow does. I think he has the weapons. I think that offensive line showed last week that even if we don't get those 2 or 3 guys back, these guys can still hold their own. I like Cincinnati to go through, but by no means am I putting any of my money on this, on the spread side of things. But I do like the over here, just because I think we're going to see some points being scored. But I think overall this weekend, this is the first time I think in a little while that we get to Conference Championship Sunday and you couldn't really make an argument that, oh, this team should have been here or that team should have been here. These are the 4 best teams in the league, or at the very least, the 2 best conference teams in their conference. Sorry, what was that?
I said must see TV for sure.
100%. You got the final full day of football, 12 to 6:30, at least if you're on the West Coast. Because like I said, the wait to the Super Bowl is going to be a bit of a long one. And although I do expect no matter what matchup we get, I think we're going to have a really good game. But I always say there's no guarantee the Super Bowl is going to be very good, but there's almost always a guarantee that these conference championship games are going to be good. But final thoughts, Raider Jim, for this conference championship edition of the NFL Weekly.
Yeah, I'm actually going to do a little flashback here for my final thought, and that is yesterday, the 25th of January, was an anniversary of sorts. It was the anniversary of Super Bowl 32, 25 years ago, Qualcomm Stadium, right here in our backyard, San Diego. And it was John Elway and the Denver Broncos taking on Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers. What a game that was supposed to be. Packers went in favored by 11. That didn't work out too well. Asked my buddy who was a huge baseball fan and was telling me about how much money he was going to bet on the Packers. And I said, please don't do that, because I'm telling you, the Broncos are going to pull this one out for John Elway. But Elway aside, and they did get the Lombardi Trophy, the Broncos did that year. But what was really cool for me is San Diego's own Terrell Davis went to high school right here at Lincoln High, most valuable player of that game. So what a great memory in San Diego sports history.
Yeah, that's a great point. I remember that. I can't believe how time flies. I remember that game, and I was young. What was that? Was that 97 or?
No, it was 8.
98. Thank you. So I would have been 10 years old. So yeah, I don't think the betting line was on my radar, thank goodness. But I do remember a lot of people, saying that the Packers are going to win, and me being a Charger fan at the time, having my heart broken by John Elway, I just kept thinking, like, I know I don't watch a ton of football, but this Elway cat, and then, this team is really, really good. And I think that was the first of two. I believe the next season they defeated the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl, the Jamal Anderson Dirty Birds, Dan Reeves as well. But it was kind of that dynasty of the Mike Shanahan Broncos. What a great flashback that was. My final thought is just to kind of look at some of these players in this championship game, and you can go online and look up their former high school star ratings, and some of them are just absolutely insane to me. Both Lane Johnson and Jason Kelce, these two have not allowed a sack in over 2 years, folks. All right, Lane Johnson and Jason Kelce had a combined 0 stars coming out of high school. Now, obviously, we've seen what they've turned into, but the point being, sometimes, and myself as well as a college football fan, it's the 5 stars, it's the 4 stars, it's those big time recruits. Well, there's a guy like Josh Allen, or, even a Joe Burrow, who is a 3-star, and now he's arguably the best quarterback in the league. That stuff doesn't matter. Keep working your behind off. Everything else will work itself out. Will you become the greatest at your profession? Maybe not, but I guarantee you work your ass off, you're going to prove some people wrong, and that's pretty cool as well. So that's my final thought. Just keep grinding out there. But with that, thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the NFL Weekly, presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It's time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. Raider Jim's got something for us.
I have one question. I forgot to get this in. I have a question for you.
Yep.
Eagles prevail on Sunday. Will we see you at SoFi Stadium?
Well, the Super Bowl's in Glendale.
Oh,
it's in Arizona. Still doable.
Are we going to see you?
Still doable, but no. No. Driving location wise, doable. Expense wise and number wise, not even close. Barely enough to pay for the cable to watch the game. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I will. Actually, my buddies are throwing me it's about 5 days after my birthday, so they wanted to throw me a birthday party.
Very good.
They said, "Hey, we'll do it on the Super Bowl," and I told them, I was like, "Y'all got kids. I'm just telling you, I probably shouldn't be around them. They're like, we'll put you in the garage. You'll have your own TV. The wives will be with the children inside. We'll have some fun. So, I warned them. They know what they're signing up for. But yeah, no, that would be fantastic. One of these days, that would be a fantastic bucket list, whether the Eagles are in it or not. I think Super Bowl would be a fantastic experience. But unless something drastically changes in the next 2 weeks, I will be watching from home. But thank you all again so much for listening. Take care, and we'll see you very soon.